Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Sykes Villain channel. This is Quick Picks. Today we're going to be discussing the Fallen Trilogy. And if you don't know what I mean by that, I'm talking about Olympus Has Fallen, London Has Fallen, and Angel Has Fallen. Recently finished watching the full trilogy with my dad, so it's fresh in my mind. London Has Fallen is still currently available on Netflix if you want to check that out. So let's start off with the first film, Olympus Has Fallen. And first we're going to talk about the good. I saw this in the theater. These are definitely big screen movies. These are ones you want to watch on a big screen or in the theater if possible. Really good theater experience. This had pretty well flushed out characters for such a straightforward action film. I really felt the tension between Banning and the president in this movie. I also felt this movie had more hand-to-hand combat than the other ones, which was a plus. It did feel super crazy and over the top. The villains also felt over the top. And the villains and their motivations, they felt like comic book villains. The main attack in this movie kind of feels like it comes out of nowhere. Unfortunately, in this movie, it being the first one, we don't really know Banning as well. He feels less human, more like a character, or even more like a vehicle for the story and the plot. So I really liked this one. I didn't love it. I could rewatch it, but I would say that this was my least favorite of the three. It felt very unrealistic at times, especially when it comes to the attacks. Okay, now we're moving on to London Has Fallen. I think this one by far has the best setup of the three. In this one, the characters felt the most fleshed out, including the villains and their motivations. After the initial setup, which didn't feel too long, the movie is just all non-stop action from start to finish. For me, it didn't feel slow in any points or like there was a lull period in the movie. Even during the point, like about halfway through the movie, where there is sort of a lull, like you don't really feel it at all. I'd say this one had the most satisfying action and kills. This one was also much funnier than the first one. Like, there were certain points where I actually laughed out loud. In this one, it was great to see Banning and the president working together and getting along. Okay, so speaking of the president, it was crazy to see the president like right alongside Banning, fighting like right alongside him and having like the same skill sets and like knowledge of combat and everything. It was just like, it's totally out of left field. There was less hand-to-hand combat and choreography in this one. There was also less practical effects and on-screen kills in this one, I would say, but only slightly less than the first one. It had a really good conclusion though, and I would say that this one is probably my favorite of the three, but I like it only slightly more than the third one. So now I will move on to the third one, which is Angel Has Fallen. This one was by far the funniest of the three. This one also had tons of practical effects and on-screen kills, explosions. I loved Nick Nolte as the father in this one. He was really funny, and I really liked him and Banning working together and their chemistry. I think this one had the most realism out of all three, to the point where it was kind of like creepy just to think that there's, stuff out there that's really like this. I wasn't a huge fan of the villains in this one. They didn't seem like as comic as the ones in the first one, like I said before, but I just wasn't a big fan of the villains or their motivations. And then also the twist in this one, or like the secret villain, was a little bit too obvious and on the nose. It just felt a little bit too convenient. I did like the relationship between Banning and the main villain though. That was interesting. In this one, the actress that plays Banning's wife in the first two was replaced, so that was kind of a bummer. And then we also did not see Aaron Eckhart in this one at all. He did not return as the president, or in this one he would have been the ex-president or former president. But I was hoping for at least a cameo from him, but he did not return in this one, so that was unfortunate. So I would say that this one is my second favorite of the three, but like I said, only just barely. I really did enjoy this one. I really like that these films are R-rated, because they could have easily made these films PG-13 and probably would have made way more money. I think that they are much funnier because they're R-rated. Also, it allows them to have better action, better practical effects, and on-screen kills. I think I mentioned this before, but I really don't feel the length of these films, especially the second and the third one. They just feel like they fly by, and it's just non-stop action from start to finish. These films, like, they almost feel self-aware, like they know what they are. They're a straightforward action movie, and they really get to the point, and it's just like hard-hitting. Plus, they have pretty good acting for, straightforward action movies. All in all, I would say I definitely recommend the whole trilogy for a first-time viewing, especially if you are a action and thriller fan. You'll really enjoy these. It feels like at least one of these is always streaming somewhere. I also think they have rewatchability. I would rewatch them at some point down the road, or to show someone that hadn't seen them before. They can feel a little baseline or one note. There's not a ton of story or intricacies, so I like them all, but they're not something that I would buy to add to my collection, because like I said, they're pretty much always streaming somewhere, but they are good enough for a rewatch. I really enjoyed the full trilogy. And that's going to be it for the Fallen Trilogy. So like I said, I recommend checking them out if you haven't already, especially if you're an action and thriller fan. Thanks for watching. Thanks for hanging out. Catch you next time. Bye.